So let's talk about this new thing that everybody seems to be buzzing about. Madison Beer and Justin Herbert suddenly being a couple. Or at least that's what the headlines are trying to make us believe. Because lately, every time you open up your phone, it feels like their names are somehow linked together. I've been watching the way this whole story is unfolding, and honestly, it's fascinating because it doesn't just feel like a normal celebrity dating situation. It feels like a test of how much people will buy into a narrative that's being presented to them. On the surface, it looks like a pop star and an NFL quarterback got together, nothing new. But once you start peeling back the layers and looking at their personalities, their histories, and the way the media has started shaping their image, it becomes a lot more complicated than that. Madison Beer is someone who has grown up in the entertainment industry, and that's not easy for anyone, especially when you're discovered at a ridiculously young age and suddenly labeled as the next big thing. Most people know the story of how Justin Bieber shared her singing video online when she was just 13, and from that point on, she was thrown into a spotlight she didn't really ask for but couldn't escape either. That kind of fame comes with a weird double-edged sword, because while it gives you opportunities, it also makes people hypercritical of everything you do. Madison has been both celebrated and torn apart online, and she's admitted more than once that her looks and her image sometimes made people dismiss her actual talent. Imagine being a teenager trying to prove yourself in music, and the world keeps telling you you're too pretty to be taken seriously. That messes with your head. And because she was navigating all of that while also figuring out who she was, she ended up in the middle of controversies, rumors, and relationships that people never let her forget. Justin Herbert's rise, on the other hand, looks like the complete opposite. He's not the type of guy who built his career off of Hollywood parties or social media scandals. He's an athlete who worked his way up through college football, kept his private life as quiet as possible, and earned respect as one of the most promising quarterbacks in the NFL. People talk about his height, his looks, his calm personality, and how he doesn't really get caught up in drama. For a while, he was even known as one of the NFL's most eligible bachelors, the type of guy who was famous but not messy about it. And then out of nowhere, his name starts getting tied to Madison Beer, which instantly raised eyebrows, because it feels like two completely different worlds colliding. Now, when I saw those first paparazzi photos of them together, I couldn't help but laugh a little, because in today's world, celebrities know exactly when and how they're being photographed. These weren't grainy, blurry, caught-off-guard shots. They were crystal clear, perfect lighting, and casual enough to look real, while still polished enough to make headlines. Madison and Justin weren't ducking their heads or running from cameras. They were walking out casually, holding wine and snacks, basically saying, "Here we are, go ahead and talk about us." And of course, that's exactly what happened. Overnight, every outlet started comparing them to Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, because apparently, the media can't resist trying to replicate that formula of pop star plus football star equals America's next obsession. But if you really think about it, that comparison doesn't fit here, and that's what makes this whole thing feel so forced. Taylor Swift is the biggest pop star on the planet, no debate about that. She dominates music, culture, and media in a way almost nobody else does. Travis Kelce, aside from being a great athlete, also leans into the spotlight with charisma and personality. They became a cultural moment, and it worked because both of them played into it. Madison Beer is talented, yes, but she doesn't have the same level of fame or dominance as Taylor. And Justin Herbert, while respected, doesn't have the same outspoken, spotlight-loving energy as Travis. So when the media tries to frame Madison and Justin as the new Taylor and Travis, it feels like they're trying to manufacture something instead of letting it develop naturally. And here's where I start asking myself, is this relationship even real, or is it a carefully staged publicity stunt? Because if you look at Madison's dating history, you start to see a pattern of public relationships that always seem to come with baggage. Back in 2015, she dated Jack Galinsky, and that relationship ended in a really ugly way when an audio recording of him verbally abusing her went viral. He called her names, accused her of cheating, and the whole world got to hear it. Madison was still young then, and that experience shaped the way people saw her and the way she probably saw herself in relationships. After that, she briefly had a thing with Brooklyn Beckham, which was more about the buzz of two famous names together than anything serious. Then she got involved with Zach Beer, who was notorious in the LA scene for being messy and manipulative. Their relationship lasted on and off for a year, and there were even public arguments caught on camera. It looked toxic from the outside, and fans were constantly questioning why she stayed. After Zach came Nick Austin, the TikToker. At first, their relationship seemed cute, like two young people in love, but it quickly started raising red flags too. There were rumors that Nick would post private photos of Madison online for attention, which if true, is a huge breach of trust. On top of that, Nick would often disappear from social media for long stretches, citing struggles with his mental health, which is understandable, but it put Madison in this role of constantly having to defend him and hold the relationship together. They lasted for a few years, but eventually it ended, and not long after that, Madison is suddenly spotted with Justin Herbert. Now, Justin's history is way more low-key. He was linked to Taylor Bisciotti, a sports journalist, and while they were rumored to be serious, neither of them ever really confirmed much. Then, Justin unfollowed her on Instagram, which fans immediately took as a breakup sign. Other than that, he hasn't had the kind of messy public relationships Madison has. That's why seeing him with Madison feels so jarring, like he's stepping into an entirely new kind of spotlight he's never had before. And maybe that's the point. Maybe part of him is curious to experience what it's like to date someone from the Hollywood side of fame. But then again, with Madison, it's never just about the relationship. She's had her fair share of controversies outside of dating too. I remember when she casually said her favorite book was Lolita, and when people asked her to clarify if she was romanticizing it, she basically said yes, which obviously set off a wave of backlash. Later she apologized and said she misspoke, but by then the damage was done. There's also that old video of her rapping along to a song and using the N-word, which resurfaced years later, right around the time she was photographed at Black Lives Matter protests. That led to people accusing her of staging photos for clout, because one photographer even suggested the protest pictures were arranged. Madison denied that, but the controversy stuck, and it added to the narrative that she sometimes chases an image rather than just letting things be natural. So when you take all of that into account, this new pairing with Justin Herbert feels like it could go one of two ways. Either it's exactly what it looks like, a real relationship where they're genuinely enjoying each other's company, or it's a PR move meant to spark attention for both of them. And honestly, both outcomes make sense. On one hand, maybe Justin's calm, stable personality is exactly what Madison needs after years of dating guys who thrived on chaos. Maybe she's finally found someone who doesn't want to use her or exploit her, and that balance could help her grow. On the other hand, Justin might be giving her an easy route into a new wave of media attention, while he himself gets introduced to audiences outside of sport. If that's the case, then this might just be another Hollywood romance that fizzles out once the cameras stop caring. I find it interesting how divided people are about this whole situation. Some fans love the idea of them being together, calling them a power couple and saying Madison deserves a healthy relationship. Others think it feels way too staged and point out that the timing of those paparazzi photos was just a little too perfect. And I get it, because in today's celebrity culture, it's really hard to tell what's authentic anymore. Everything is so curated, so carefully presented, that you're always left wondering if you're watching a real love story or just another performance designed to trend on social media. But here's the truth, whether this relationship is real or staged, Madison Beer and Justin Herbert have managed to do exactly what every celebrity couple wants. They've gotten people talking, they've sparked conversations, debates, comparisons, and headlines. And at the end of the day, that's what keeps you relevant in this industry. Sometimes it doesn't even matter if the love is real or not, as long as the buzz is. And that's where I think people need to step back and ask themselves, are we watching two people genuinely figuring things out together? Or are we just letting ourselves get sucked into the narrative that the media wants us to believe? Maybe it's a little bit of both. Maybe there's some real connection there, but they also don't mind letting the world speculate, because in Hollywood, speculation is currency. As long as people are talking, they're winning.